Hello everyone, back tuning in today's second video. Going to do a GFS Ensembles Watch for today's second video. Going to go through all 21 members of the GFS Ensembles, starting with the operational run of the GFS. See what it's showing from, we're going to start on the 28th of December, because there is a little bit of a suggestion that we might get some snow on the 28th of December, a week today. So we'll be starting there and then running through the new year into the first week of January. Just say that today's first video had a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. You can find that here on the homepage. Just scroll down the page a little bit, and it's above the snow desk. So let's go on. We're going to have a look at what's Central D tonight for the ensembles. So we're going to begin with the operational run of the GFS. So it's this area of low pressure just here that might bring some snow, particularly to northern parts of the country on 28th of December. It's on quite a southerly track, and around Boxing Day and the 27th of December, just before this, we do establish some quite cold air. So as this low pressure runs into that cold air, it might give some snow, and that would be most likely. This is the operational run of the GFS, highest resolution member of the GFS. So it would be most likely on the northern and eastern side on this particular run, but you'll see as we go through that the position of this low pressure is moving around quite a lot. So that's how the operational run looks with that low pressure on the 28th of December. We run through to the 29th, and you'll notice that low pressure is moving away, and that leaves us cold up to the 30th. But then quite quickly, as we head towards the new year, we start to bring in low pressure off the Atlantic. So this is New Year's Eve, when we're getting a real push of southwesterly winds then, bringing much milder conditions to many parts of the country. And that takes us into the new year. This is New Year's Day, looking generally very mild with southwesterly winds and quite a lot of wind and rain. And then that takes us through the first week of January, unsettled and mild. By the very end of the GFS on the 6th of January, slightly cooler northwesterly wind is starting to come in, but overall that is quite a mild sort of a scenario. So that is the operational run of the GFS. But what about all the other GFS members? So the next one to look at is the control. That is run at a slightly lower resolution compared to the operational run, but it's run at a higher resolution compared to all other ensemble members. Again, we're starting in a week's time, 28th of December. There's that area of low pressure much further south on this run, so it's just across the far southwest of England. Remember, it's to the north and the east of the low pressure that you could get snow, so that could be bringing some sort of snow situation in towards Wales, southwestern parts of England, perhaps, in a week's time. Let's go through and see what happens then. So that gets out of the way on the 29th of December. Then we're building in a ridge. Heading up towards the new year, it's starting to turn mild with southerly to southwesterly winds, although not overly mild, because there's no long fetch sort of southwesterly there. The wind is more southerly, and I assume it's quite cold across France. So actually that would be fairly cool, I would have thought, into New Year's Eve. Probably quite a cold wind, although the upper air temperatures, if we look to those, not going to, but if we look to those, they will probably be quite mild. Heading up towards the 1st of January, so this is New Year's Day, we start trying to take that high pressure to Scandinavia, you'll notice. So we are having a go at beginning to back the winds into the east here with the control GFS on New Year's Day. However, it doesn't come off, and as we go through the first days of January, we go into that southwesterly wind, and that turns things very mild then, and quite unsettled as well. And now we're running up into the first week of January, the end of the first week of January, 6th of January. Still looking generally quite mild, not desperately unsettled, but quite mild there. After that go, getting the winds into the east. This is ensemble member number 1 for 28th of December, and there's no real sign of that low pressure with ensemble member number 1. It just looks quite windy and cold and showery with those westerly winds. We go through up towards the new year, and it stays very unsettled. It's quite a stormy one, so we don't get those very mild southerly southwesterly winds, but it is quite stormy. And then as we go through into the opening days of January, we just keep the pattern that we've got at the moment, really, which is very unsettled. Bouts of rain coming through, quite cold as well, as the wind is coming in from a northwesterly direction, so cold, unsettled, quite stormy conditions there through the first week of January of Ensemble member number 1. And then we finish up like that, building high pressure through the country. I think quite cold air, so that would be pretty cold first week of January, actually, starting off quite stormy and then turning drier. Ensemble member number 1. Ensemble member number 2 looks like that, with a low pressure on Thursday. It's to our southeast, so this could be bringing snow, let's say, to parts of northern England, Wales, maybe down into Midlands, and then we go through up towards the new year, and we find that it stays unsettled. So again, we're not bringing up that very mild southwesterly push of air as we head towards New Year's Eve. It's just quite cool and unsettled. That takes us to New Year's Day, where low pressure started to move in from the Atlantic. Yes, the winds are southerly there, but it's not particularly mild. We haven't got that long fetch sort of southwesterly wind that we see particularly with the operational run of the GFS. Now, we go through into the opening days of January, and look at this, it's beginning to try and raise pressure over Scandinavia. In fact, the low pressure is starting to slip down towards the Bay of Biscay, so we are getting the winds into the east here. So we get a brief spell of cold easterly winds there through the first week of January, but then we find low pressure starting to come in off the Atlantic, although it is having a job to get through, so that might be some sort of snow event. We finish up looking like that, actually, on the 6th of January. I haven't looked at these ensembles, by the way, so they're as much as a surprise to me as they are for you as you're watching this. We finish up with high pressure really taking over across Scandinavia. The wind is in the east, and we're probably seeing snow across southern parts of the country from that area of low pressure. That's a much more wintry one there. Ensemble member number 2. Ensemble member number 3 looks like that. Northerly winds as we go through into Thursday. Let's see what happens after that. So that low pressure that I think is giving the snow event or the snow situation possibly on the 28th. That's to our south by the 29th. So again, in a complete different position. That one's down towards the Channel. Could bring some snow to parts of England and Wales. And then that low pressure gets out of the way. We try and have a go at building some high pressure for the new year, but very quickly that's removed as low pressure comes in from off the Atlantic. And then we just turn increasingly unsettled, cool and showery as we run through the first week of January. So no build of high pressure over Scandinavia with that one. So member number 4 looks very stormy on the 28th of December and quite cold as well. Let's see what happens next. So unsettled and quite stormy conditions continue there through in towards the new year. It stays pretty chilly. That's a severe gale there on New Year's Day coming through the country. Again, no long fetch southwesterly until the 2nd of January when we do open the door to those southwesterly winds, and then we're off and running into quite an unsettled opening week of January. That's how things end up on the 6th. Again, having a go at building a little bit of pressure up over Scandinavia, but this one is mild and Atlantic driven through the first week of January. So member number 5 looks like that, quite cold northerly winds in a week's time, and then we go through to the new year and it's all looking very unsettled with the winds from a south-southwesterly type direction. That takes us to New Year's Day, again looking unsettled and quite cool. Now this one's having a go at building some high pressure over Scandinavia. So it looks like we've got a bit of a theme here within the GFS Ensembles. Just around New Year's Day or just after, we might have a go at building some pressure over Scandinavia. Nothing comes of it on this one, and it just turns very unsettled, or stays very unsettled, through the opening week of January. However, by the end, the 6th, it looks like we're beginning to see that area of low pressure weakening, as again, pressure is trying to build up over Scandinavia. This is ensemble member number 6, looks stormy in a week's time. Let's go through and see what happens. So we're getting up towards the New Year. This is New Year's Eve, looking very unsettled, quite mild too. And then we go through into the opening week of January, staying unsettled, low pressure close to the country, bringing more bouts of wet weather in. We finish up like that. Again, low pressure probably beginning to weaken a little bit, but overall quite mild. Again, a little bit of ridging is starting to take place up over Scandinavia. This is ensemble member number 7. Looks quite stormy and cold for a week's time. Beyond that, going up towards the new year, so another low pressure is running through there on the 29th. That might bring something wintry to the southern part of the country. And then after that, we're up to New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, where we're bringing in milder west-southwesterly winds. Again, not really a long fetch southwesterly, however, and then running through the first week of January with ensemble member number 7. So it just stays and settles, generally quite mild, no build of high pressure over Scandinavia. Ensemble member number 8 shows low pressure close to the country, quite cold northerly winds are coming in a week's time. Let's carry on through. So we're going up towards New Year, still quite cold up to the 30th. Then on the 31st, we're having a go, bringing some milder air in, but notice pressure is rising to our northeast. We've got highish pressure over Iceland, highish pressure over Scandinavia as well, as we go towards the new year, and this takes us to New Year's Day, where it looks like this high pressure to our north is winning the battle. So this one is turning us cold. That's quite a blocking feature setting up there to the north of Scotland, and winds are turning into the northeast. It's not bringing anything desperately cold through, but it would certainly be chilly around the new year. There'd be quite a lot of hard frost as well, and not particularly unsettled either. This is ensemble member number 9. In a week's time, we've got that low pressure generally across Ireland to the far southwest of the country. So that one looks rather unsettled, and there might be some snow on the northern and eastern side of that low pressure. We're up towards New Year's Eve now, where we're bringing in these very mild southerly southwesterly winds, and then we go into the first week of January. Notice high pressure is having a go at building over Scandinavia again, but this one is keeping us Atlantic driven through the first week of January, so generally quite mild. That's how we finish up on the 6th of January. But again, we have got high pressure there to the northeast over Scandinavia and backing in towards western Russia. It doesn't do anything for us at that stage. We're generally mild and unsettled, but it's interesting that most of these ensemble members are trying to do some sort of build of pressure over Scandinavia around the new year. This ensemble member of 10, and looks very unsettled across the country. That low pressure isn't really there, though, funnily enough, in a week's time. So no snow event with that one on the 28th. We go through up towards the new year. It looks very unsettled, quite stormy, actually, this one, and very mild with those southwesterly winds as well. That's how we go through the first week of January. Again, looking very mild. Pressure is rising, but this time it's rising it to our south across many parts of continental Europe. So the winds stay from a southerly southwest direction. That's a very mild ensemble member number 10. But we haven't seen many, but are like that, actually. This is how ensemble member number 11 looks, unsettled and quite cold on the 28th of December. We keep these areas of low pressure coming in to this cold air running up towards the new year, so it remains very unsettled. That's quite stormy there on the 30th of January, and still on 30th of December, should say, and still cold as well. That's New Year's Eve, looking quite cold and windy and showery. Going into the opening days of January, so we bring some milder air up from the southwest for a time, but overall we keep high pressure close to the country, so probably quite cool and frosty there for the first week of January with ensemble member number 11. Number 12 looks like this, quite unsettled and cold through the 28th, 29th of December. That could bring something wintry across parts of England and Wales, 28th to 29th of December. Then it turns milder running up towards the new year with those southwesterly winds and quite stormy as well. New Year's Day is looking like that, generally quite mild and fairly unsettled. Running through the first week of January, it stays unsettled and mild with this one. The winds are generally from the southwest. Ensemble member number 13 looks quite cold and unsettled in a week's time. We keep it pretty cold and unsettled running up towards the new year. This is taking us to New Year's Day. It's quite stormy and pretty cold still. Could be some wintry weather in the north. Then we go through the first week of January, keeping it unsettled and generally wind from the west, so not particularly cold, no rise of pressure over Scandinavia. That's how ensemble member number 14 looks in a week's time. Again, there's that low pressure. This time it's across Ireland, so that could bring something wintry to the southwestern part of the country, perhaps in the southern part of the country even. 28th to the 29th of December. Winds going to the north then, so it's cold up to the 30th, looking quite cold, and then we bring up those very mild southwesterly winds the New Year's Eve and for New Year's Day as well. Let's go through the first week of January, see what happens. So it stays unsettled into the first week of January. Again, no build of pressure over Scandinavia, just low pressure, keeping it very unsettled with ensemble member number 14. Number 15 looks unsettled and not particularly cold, actually, on the 28th of December. We go through to the 29th, and again, it looks pretty unsettled, running up towards the new year. This is taking us up to New Year's Day. Quite chilly there up to New Year's Day, with more of an influence from high pressure with this one. And then we go through this opening week of January. This one is trying to raise some pressure over Scandinavia, although we keep winds in from the west, so it stays mild up to the 6th of January. Stays mild Atlantic driven, but pressure is rising, heights are rising to our north, to our northeast. Ensemble member number 16 looks like that. In a week's time, it's cold and showery. The winds turn into the north, and that's bringing proper cold air down again across the country. Then we head up towards the new year, and eventually, it takes a while, but eventually those southwesterly winds start to re-establish, and then it just turns through the first week of January very mild and unsettled, with winds coming in from the west, although we're turning winds back to the north again by the 5th of January, and that's how we finish up on the 6th of January, still with wind from the west-northwest, no build of pressure over Scandinavia. Ensemble member number 17 looks like that. Cold northerly winds in a week's time, and trying to raise pressure a bit over Greenland. Those northerly winds stay with us up towards the New Year, so this is taking us to New Year's Eve, and we are having to go up bringing low pressure in from off the Atlantic, but it's struggling. Heights are rising over Scandinavia, and a Scandinavian high there at 1,030 millibars. Let's run into the new year and get a proper area of high pressure over Scandinavia, although for us we keep the wind in from the west, so it remains generally unsettled and quite mild. We finish up like that by the 6th of January, building high pressure up from the southwest. That's another one that's having a go at building high pressure over Scandinavia. Ensemble member number 18 looks cold with those northerly winds in a week's time. And then, as we head up towards the new year, high pressure is taking over, and again, it is towards Scandinavia. So this one's quite cold going into the new year, mainly dry but frosty. We go through the first week of January, got a proper area of high pressure there over Scandinavia. Eventually, though, it is broken down by the 6th of January. We're reverting to those milder westerly winds. Penultimately, number 19 looks like that in a week's time. Cold and unsettled, quite stormy actually, there to the 29th. When we go into the new year, we bring up those southwesterly winds, trying to build high pressure to our east. It is moving to the east, quite interesting. It's getting up towards Scandinavia and west parts of Russia, but we stay on the mild side up to the 6th of January. And then finally, we've got ensemble member number 20, looking quite unsettled and fairly cold in a week's time. Then we go very stormy on the 29th to the 30th. So there's a lot of uncertainty in relation to these areas of low pressure next week. That's the first thing to say. A lot of uncertainty about what's happening next week. We go through into the opening days of January, looking very unsettled, quite stormy as well, and then we run through the first week of January, keeping winds generally from a west-southwesterly direction with ensemble member number 20. It's a mixed bag, but there is some interest there if you want cold weather, because several of those ensemble members are trying to build up pressure over Scandinavia around and just after the new year. Very few of them actually have high pressure winning and turn us cold. Most of them that are building high pressure over Scandinavia break it down and keep us in westerly winds. But the fact they're having a go at building some pressure over Scandinavia is quite interesting, and I'll say no more than that. As far as next week's weather is concerned, they all look quite cold and stormy in the second half of next week, but they're disagreeing on the exact track of these areas of low pressure. So there is wind shear potential with those low pressures, particularly, I think, focusing around the 27th to the 29th. There could be some snow, and I would say most likely for that in the northern part of the country. But as we saw with some of those ensemble members, don't rule out the chance of some wind shear weather in the second half of next week, even further south. And then beyond that, it could well be a case of all eyes on Scandinavia as we go into the first week of the new year. And of course, we'll be keeping an eye on that in subsequent updates. Right, so probably not as bad as most of you were fearing, actually, for this Ensembles Watch. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.